All right, today we're talking about how there's no such thing as peace, and we're going to be starting off with a verse which is quoted by Jesus, which is Luke 12:51, which says this. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there will be 5 in one family divided against each other, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided. Father against son and son against father, mother against daughter and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. So I said there was no such thing as peace, and I'm sure you were really reluctant to actually agree with me and nod your head and say, yeah, he's right. But now God, the creator of the universe, is saying that he himself hasn't come to bring peace, but to divide. And I want to make it clear, it's not because God doesn't want peace, but it's because he knows that peace is impossible when you're given freedom of choice. Because when you speak truth, when you speak absolute truth, you're going to have the people that agree, the people that want to hear it, and the people that disagree, and the people that don't want to hear it, and the people that disagree will rebel against. So by speaking truth, you automatically split things into two. And that doesn't mean that the truth isn't necessary. Even when I myself make these videos, I'm not here to make friends with anyone. I know there's going to be people that agree. I know there's going to be people that disagree. Because some people react based off of emotions and other people react based off logic. Even just the way I speak about certain things. Even just the way I speak. I know if I spoke non-confrontationally, you guys wouldn't listen to what I have to say. If I spoke softly, if I spoke non-confrontationally, you guys wouldn't compute anything and nothing would calibrate. And that's the thing about being a leader. You need to be confrontational. If you aren't confrontational, you probably shouldn't be a leader. Because if you aren't confrontational, then you'd be willing to let your team fall apart simply because you didn't want to speak up or take action. And this is super important for men because God calls us to be leaders. So that's rule number 1 of being a leader, is to always expect conflict, and when conflict arises, confront it. Whether it's within your own team or an exterior factor. Another rule about leadership, now that we're on the topic, there is no such thing as a decision that is made completely 50-50. One person always has authority over another in the final decision. And this is super important. I'll tell you why. I'll give you an example. I'm a part of a team of engineers, yet I never make the final decision. Why? Because I'm the person with the least amount of experience. I never have the most amount of experience. It's either the senior or the manager that makes the final decision, or whoever has the most amount of experience in that field. So what can we gain from this? If you want to be a leader, you need to have experience. Some of you guys say, well, I'm the leader of my household, but you don't even know how to do anything. The greatest thing you can do is make a peanut butter sandwich. The only reason that men were leaders back in the day and leaders of their households back in the day was because women didn't know how to do much, but now they can learn whatever, do whatever. So if you want to be a leader, you need to be constantly learning, seeking challenges, and doing difficult things. Or else you're not much of a leader. You need to do difficult things so you can make difficult choices for your family, your business, whatever. And it's not even difficult to find difficult things to do. Because like I said before, the world is never at peace, it's always at war. And I mean that in everything. People are at war for your attention, people are at war for whose opinion you side with, people are at war for who you give your money to, etc. So once you understand that the world is always at war, whether you like it or not, but once you understand that the world is always at war, then you start to understand how propaganda works. You start to understand that there are certain things that you're shown and other things that you're not shown in order to persuade you. And I'm not just talking about news articles. I'm not talking about news propaganda. I'm talking about movies. I don't think I've watched a single movie in the last 365 days. Probably more. I couldn't care less about movies. There's a couple bangers, but outside of that, I couldn't care less. And it's almost as if I've had this personal vendetta against movies recently. And I understood that movies can kind of take you out of touch with reality. Movies can distract you from enjoying your real life. Movies can be a form of propaganda in and of themselves. But there was something else about it that I couldn't fully figure out. And I have figured it out. And before I say it, I want to say I could be completely taking this way too seriously. This is just the way I see it. When you're watching a movie, you're put in this unique scenario and situation where you're outside the timeline of the story of the movie itself, and you're given all the information, or most of the information. You know way more information than all the other characters. So you have all the information, you know the story. And when this happens, you start to apply these things to real life. Because you watch movies so often, you start to apply the same principles to movies to real life. So, because you have all the information, because you're outside the storyline, outside the timeline, you start to think you can do this in real life. So you start making judgment calls based off misinformation or incomplete information in every situation. And the reason you do this is because you've been trained by movies to think that you always have all the information. I'll give you an example. You're watching a movie, horror movie, whatever, and some dude is about to get stabbed in his back, and you're screaming at the TV, "Hey dude, run. Get out of the way. Turn around." And then he gets stabbed. And you think to yourself, well, that could never be me. But that is most certainly you every day.